Hey guys, in this tutorial I'm gonna go over the parameters we've created in the last tutorial. I want to clean them up a little bit, as well as changing some of the expressions inside all the nodes so it works out a little bit better. Then from there I'm gonna start a new Unreal project and I'm gonna create some references from the materials in Unreal to our tool. To us to be able to do that, we actually need some UVs, so that's gonna be the focus of this tutorial. So right off the bat, again, we're jumping in Houdini. In Houdini, I'm gonna set the parameters and I'm gonna go to my type properties. And because I know I'm gonna do some of the stuff in Unreal later on, I actually want to change my parameter interface a little bit. I'm gonna start off with a toggle. And this toggle I'm gonna place all the way in the top. And I'm gonna quickly call this our work mode. And I'm gonna hit apply. And right, you can see that right there, it starts with work mode. Then I'm gonna create a folder, and I'm gonna create that folder right underneath it. I'm gonna call it simple, and our folder is gonna be called work mode folder. And for the label, we don't really need a name right now, so I'm just gonna hit apply, and then I'm gonna drag our corner offset, our corner divisions. I'm gonna hold shift, and the pipe diameter, so from here all the way down, and I'm going to drag those into the folder. Hit apply. As you can see, we get our work mode folder. Okay, so currently it needs a name, so I'm going to call this work mode, and I'm just going to hit apply. We got our work mode version. The corner offset, I actually want to make clear that this is in centimeters. And I'm gonna hit apply, and I set this from 0 to, for now, 50. And I'm not gonna lock it. Just for now, I'm gonna have this value here. And when I hit apply, I'm actually gonna dive in, because this is one of the things that I wanted to change. I want to have these values a little bit more true to the real world scales. So I'm gonna dive in, and we had our offset was in our poly bevel. So right now it just takes the actual value, but I want to multiply that by a very small number. So now when I have have my tool here, and I have the corner offset these values here to an example 20 centimeters. I think it's 10 too many. We actually get like our 20 centimeter unit in there as well. That's our offset. Alright, so in this parameter, I go to channels, and I can actually set my default value. And I think 20 is a good value for now. I'm just going to hit apply. I want to do the same thing for the other nodes that I have. So I want to make sure that divisions, they don't go by scale, so I don't really need that. But my pipe diameter, it's kind of important that I know that this is in centimeter as well. I'm just going to hit apply. And again, I want to have my default value. Now it's set to 0.19, which makes it almost 2 centimeters. But in reality, it's actually almost 20. Right, so again here, I think 15 is a good value. I'm going to hit apply. I'll go to my parameter, and I'm going to set this one to 0. I'm going to lock it. And then this one, again, I'm just going to use half a meter. Apply there as well. I'm going to dive in, and then in this circle, I'm going to change this one here. And I'm not going to do it times 0.5, but 0.05. I'm going to copy this parameter. I'm going to paste the relative reference so I know they're always the same. And eventually I also want to adjust the divisions of my actual pipe, but I don't want that in the initial work mode, because I want the work mode to be as fast as possible for the end user. So I'm going to drag this under there, and I'm going to change this one from just divs. I'm going to say p underscore division, And then here again, pipe divisions, and that gives me the amount of divisions in the pipe. So if I wanted to have a more square looking pipe, or I don't need the actual polygons because the pipe diameter is very small, I can change those. Alright, so I'm gonna hit apply, and my channel is set to 12, which is a good default. Okay, I'm gonna hit accept, and now of course I have to revert these to the default settings. You can see it's a bit too big. I'm gonna dive in, see what's wrong. And we have our circle, which is still kind of big. So maybe I have to decrease it a little bit more. And that gives our value here, which is nice. As you can see, the values of our flanges that we created, so I can zoom out quite a lot, they're actually still taking in the old values. Right? So we need to update those as well. I'm going to dive in circles, and for now I'm just going to copy this one, and then when I dive into my flanges, I can just replace this circle, hit delete, hook that one up, and then in here I still need to adjust the actual channel. Control C, Control V, get that in there, and then in our divisions we need to do the same. So that works for this pipe, and then when we take a look outside, we can see that we have our flanges correctly laying on there. Right, checking out the entire thing, and we see that we are missing our actual flanges, and that's because the circle that we use to copy our points on is kind of still way too big. Right. So we're going to change those up as well. Delete this circle for now, and I'm going to focus on our initial point here, and I'm just going to copy this circle, Control V, so I know the parameters are the same. As you can see, it's still a little bit too big, so our radius, we want to have that a little bit smaller, and we're just going to do that with the uniform scale. Use 85. And we have this circle here. You can see that going inside, which is what we wanted. And when I merge those, we get our nice flanges back again. We have our output here. Only thing that's missing right now is the other points that it needed to be copied on. So these points here. As you can see, this is a little bit too big. So we're going to go in our poly bevel, and this poly bevel is still taking the input from before, so we want to divide that as well. So multiply it by 0.01, hit enter, and we got our small original curve back again. Now if we look at our output, all the flanges get created correctly. All that's missing now is the actual scaling of our original flange. So I'm going to go in again. And our circle, we just wanted in the radius, we wanted to add something on there. So we have our original pipe, and then let's say we want to add a few centimeters. So we're going to add, and then 0. Let's say we add, so 1 unit is 1 meter. So we're going to add 10 centimeters. That makes the circle a little bit bigger. We want this one to move along. So instead of literally copying this one, we're going to copy this diameter. And we're going to paste that in there. So we know that these ones scale as well. We go out again and we can see, all right, we got something going on now. We lost the connection with our flange length from our pipes. So I'm going to copy this parameter as well. I'm going to dive in. I'm going to add that to this radius as well. So we have the initial radius coming in from there, and then I'm going to say paste relative references. So I'm going to add this one, but now it's set to 10 units, which is a little bit too big. So again, I'm going to multiply this specific one by 0.01. Alright, so I'm going to clean this up a little bit and make sure that all the values are linked correctly. And you don't have to see me do that all the time, so I'm just going to quickly run over them. Alright, so we have our different offset that we can still use. We have our corner offset, which now works in centimeters. We have our corner divisions, which we can easily change as well. We have our pipe diameter, so we can change the size, and as you can see, the flanges scale as well. We have our pipe divisions, so we can just increase this as well. We have our flange divisions, which is right now not working because I haven't mixed that up yet. And then we have our flange length, so we can actually increase the length of the flanges from the pipe. So again, flange divisions still need to do that, so I'm going to hit the copy parameter, and I'm going to link that up. Alright, I'm going to quickly set all the values back to their default values. Increase the flange length, let's say by 3 centimeters, and I'm going to set that as the default. So I'm going to go to my type properties, and then in my flange length, 3 should be fine. Hitting accept, we got our stuff. Okay. So right now, for me, the next thing to do is to jump into Unreal, and I'm going to create a new project, and I actually want to walk around my asset and all that stuff. So I'm going to look for our third person. I'm going to create the project. I'm just going to set to Windows so I can actually see what I'm doing. Okay, so in this basic set that we get, we have our starter content, and we actually have materials already, and there's quite a few. So we have quite a few materials that we can start to use, and I'm going to show you how to link those into Unreal later. But for now, in our content, I'm going to start, and I'm going to create a new folder, and this folder I'm going to call pipe generator. Hit apply. I'm going to dive in, and I'm going to import. I'm going to find where that one is located. You can see my digital asset. Hit open. It's going to import it in there, and then when I drag it into the scene, what it will do is Houdini will recook, and it will automatically update everything as I have it in with the basic settings. Right, so if I look at my details, I'm just going to close my world settings for now. If I look at my details, I have all the parameters I had before. So I'm going to zoom in, and you can see we have our pipe here. And I can change everything, so I could say, okay, I don't want this many corner divisions, I want only 2, and we can see it automatically updates, or it should update in the corners. Let's see if we change the pipe diameter. This is not doing anything right now, so I think we might have to rebuild our selection. Alright, you can see we rebuild our selection, and it updates to the changes that we made. Alright, so I want 12 corner divisions, and the pipe diameter at 15 centimeters is good enough for us. I'll hit rebuild selection, it's going to rebuild, and we have our stuff going on again. Alright, so we have this one, and that's working, but as you can see, there's no materials whatsoever. We could scroll down, and in our generated meshes, I could actually just drag one of the materials in there, but that's not really what I want to do. I first want to go back to where the content was, and go in the starter content and look at my materials, and eventually you're supposed to make your own materials, but using these ones is actually quite convenient. And I'm going to start off with my burnished steel. I think that's a nice one. I'm going to copy the reference. And then I'm going to dive back into Houdini, and I'm going to create a material. And for now, I just want to have this material on everything. So I'm going to type Unreal, because we have Unreal materials in there. And then I'm just going to place that after the normal. And then in this relative path, I'm just going to paste it. And I'm going to remove the last tick, and in front I'm going to move everything forward. So we actually get the path that we're placing the material. So we have our game, so it reloads the basic game, it checks in the directory the starter content, then it goes for materials, and then it's looking for this specific material path. Alright, I'm going to go out, I'm going to save my node. And now if I dive back into Unreal and I say I'm looking for this tool, rebuild the selection, it's going to look in this material, and as you can see, it automatically updates. So if we go again and look here, you see that it automatically takes this material, which is really convenient, because if you have any artist that was working on materials, it will automatically update because it takes the path of the material and you don't have to drag that in there. But as we zoom in, we can see that the flanges, which we gave UVs, are actually nicely done. But the pipe itself, and although it looks fairly nice, it's just this distorted image that we have, and we actually want all the detail that's in this texture. And we're going to do that in Houdini. Okay, so before closing off Unreal, I'm going to quickly jump into Photoshop, and I'm going to show you guys how I'm going to create those UVs. So in Photoshop, we basically have our cross-section. That cross-section is basically our initial input, and then on the other side we have our curve, which is our second input. And right now this is a closed curve, so we're going to create points on the points that are already created, and then we're going to open it up. So we're going to create a second point on the very first point. So we actually can open it up, and we have the same ending part and beginning part, but we'll still have one straight line, right? So we have our points, which are here. So these are all of the points that are original in the curve, and then we actually created an extra point here on the same spot. So if I color that green for a second, that's going to be there, and then we have our red point, which is our very first one, that's there. So we have the green one that's located at the same position as the initial one. We're basically doing exact same for our backbone, which is our curve. So I'm gonna say we're creating points all along our curve. We have our 0 value, which is here, and we have our 1 value, which is here. So these points 0 and 1 are in the same position. Here we have our 0 and our 1 position as well. But the thing is, we're working with the actual U and V space. So we have our 0 here, our 1 here, and 1 here. Right now, both of them are laying in the same direction. So we need to rotate one of them going upwards 90 degrees, or they're both in this direction, and we need to rotate it 90 degrees downward to make sure that they don't overlap. Right, so that's it. So let's jump back. I'm going to close this Unreal for now. It's going to ask me to save, and I'll just save select it. So back in Houdini, I'm going to dive back in, and this sweep is actually going to be part of our entire system, and I want to create the UVs before this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this sweep into a subnet, so I can actually work in there. And for now, I'm going to color this green. And I'm gonna name this pipe. So we know we have our pipe, and these are our flanges. I'm gonna dive in, and I'm gonna color these to gray. And hit layout. These are our inputs. And for now, I'm just gonna quickly place a null node on the first one, so I know this one is my cross section. And I'm gonna copy this one onto this one, and I'm gonna know that this is my backbone. So we have our input curve, our backbone, and we have our circle, which is our cross section. All right, hit layout again. So what I want to do is, before I'm using the sweep, I actually want to create my UVs, and I'm going to start off with the cross section UVs. And the way I'm doing this is basically I'm starting off with a add node, and I'm going to go by polygons and then by group, and that's going to add points on all the parts of my initial backbone. Then from there, I'm going to create a point wrangle. So I'm going to go over points. I'm going to place that after the add node. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an integer called pt, and that is the add point 0, 0. Don't forget the semicolon. Then I'm going to set the attribute on the point, so set point attribute 0. Take the normal and just create an integer, and then I'm going to take a vector. Oh. And it's going to be point 0, and then closing the brackets 1, 2, 3 times. Don't forget the semicolon. And then I'm going to use add vertex. All right. And I made a mistake. All right. So make sure you don't have any typos. Then I'm going to create another null node. And this is the node where I'm going to calculate the length that goes around. So right now we're using a circle, and I could actually in the circle just have it as a open spline, so that we have our 0 point starting point and our end point at the same thing. But if we use different shapes, this is a very convenient way to make it very versatile, and that's what we want. So I'm just gonna call this measure node, although it isn't a measure node. I'm actually calling it this because that's where I'm gonna measure it. Then I'm going to use a convert node because I want to convert this to a NURBS curve. So convert. And I'm going to set this from the types to a NURBS curve. And then U and V are correct. And then the U order is going to be 2. Create a UV texture. Place that after. Right, and in the UV texture, I'm actually gonna read out the length that we had before. So I'm gonna go for a arc length spline on the UVs, and then the scale is gonna be based, or the measure node. So we're gonna go arc length, and then of course we need a node where it's coming from, and that's what we just said. We wanted the measure node. So we're taking the measure node and then closing. Then I want it 0, 1, 0, and closing the brackets. Alright, so that measures complete length. I'm just gonna, because we have our setup like this on the X, Y, and Z axes, I'm gonna rotate this 90 degrees. And then I'm gonna place another convert node below there. Oop. And in this convert, I want to convert back to polygons. So we're gonna go polygon. I actually want a very small U and a V order. Make this a little bit smaller. And then we have our sweep node. This part I can basically copy on the left side. Make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see. And I'm gonna do basically the same for the right backbone. So I'm gonna move these guys up a little bit. And we have this part here. I'm gonna use Alt drag and paste this in there. But we actually don't need this pointer angle and add, because what all that part did was open up our initial shape and then measure the full round. But since we have our curve and we have an open curve with a starting point and an ending point, or in this case starting point and an ending point, we don't need that. So again, we'll have our measure node on top, then we convert, then in the UV texture we take again the arc length from that one and we convert it back to polygon, and then we have our sweep. Alright, so I was checking and I noticed that if I turn off this reverse right here, go in the pipe generator, and if I reverse it after this, so I'm placing after the sweep, placing my reverse, it actually solves the problem that we had here. Right, so we have our pipe which is working. Alright, so we have our UVs. Okay, so the next step that we want to do is we actually want to promote the UVs that we just created. So after the sweep, I'm going to hit a attribute promote, and I'm going to promote the UVs from point to vertex UVs, and I'm going to do it on the first match. We're getting an error. We have our UVs on our points, and then we promote it to the vertex. Right. So after that, we place a fuse, so we make sure that everything is back together. Just to be sure, we place a normal node, so we get our nice normals back. As you can see, now it's inverted. So I'm just gonna reverse in between, and then we have our pipe. After this, I'm gonna place another output node. And I'm calling this out pipe geo. So I know that, okay, this is the geometry for the pipe itself. And as we said before, changing the shape and the color, hitting L to make sure everything is nicely laid out. I'm gonna go into here, and then we have our nice pipe. So now if I were to go out and save this generator, so I'm gonna save my node type. So if I dive back into Unreal and I go to my asset and I say rebuild selection, it should now take the generated UVs, and as you can see, we get a lot more nice detail in our pipe. Okay, so that's pretty neat. And we could even try a different material. So let's say we want to try steel. I'm gonna hit copy reference. I'm gonna dive back into my Houdini, I'm gonna find my material, which is on the bottom. I'm gonna paste everything, take the backticks away, remove material, go out, save my node type, so it saves everything in the asset, and then here I'm gonna rebuild my selection, and now it will automatically take the other material. Alright, that's the material. I'm gonna dismiss, and I'm gonna close this one. I'm gonna save my map, so it saves this one as well. And the next thing I want to do is I want to make quick changes to this work mode type of thing. I'm going to go back to my type properties. And the cool thing is in Houdini we have different options for our parameter interface. We can actually make things dynamic. So in our work mode version, I actually don't want to see these pipe divisions and these flange divisions and you name it. So right now I'm just going to change work mode here and change this to pipe, and I'm going to change this one to pipe as well, and hit apply. So we have our pipe interface, and eventually I want to have the pipe divisions in here as well, right? So we have our corner divisions, we have our corner offset, we have our pipe diameter, but I actually want the pipe divisions in there as well, but I don't want it to show up when we are in work mode. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the pipe divisions, and then at parameters you have a disable and a hide. And for the hide, I'm just going to type curly brackets, and then I'm going to take the name of our work mode, so the thing in between parentheses or in between brackets, work mode. And if this work mode is tagged on, so if it's equal to 1, then I want this to be disabled, right? So or hide. So now when I hit apply, you can see that it doesn't show up. So I can actually change these and have a work mode. And I want to have the same for these flange divisions. But actually doing that for all of the different parameters that we're going to create is kind of inconvenient. So I'm going to create another folder. I'm just going to place this all the way down in the root. And I'm going to place the flange information in this one. So call this one flange. To the flanges, hit apply. And then I actually want to disable this one when we have the same thing. So again, if work mode is equal to 1, I want this one to be disabled. So now when I hit apply, you can see that if I have my work mode turned off, I can actually access them, and when I have my work mode turned on, I can't do anything with these. And again, I want to have, instead of the tabs, I'll just keep this to simple. I'll hit apply. What I could also do is I could also hide this, right? So maybe I want to hide it as well. Right, so now when we turn it off, we have a lot more going on. The same happens if I use this in Unreal. Alright, well that concludes it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial we're going to create more parts. I'm going to update the corner part so we don't only have flanges, and we'll add something like a valve or whatnot. I hope you enjoyed this short tutorial, and for now, this was Dokai. Bye bye!